Pinning down the geographic location of a series of unfortunate events is a difficult undertaking. Many people have tried without success, and some people say it's unfindable, but I think that's just a lack of imagination. In reading this 13-book series, a clever reader will come across many clues as to where the story takes place. The author, Daniel Handler, pen name Lemony Snicket, purposefully kept the locations vague so as to appeal to children everywhere, without pinpointing a specific location for the story to take place. So today we're going to pinpoint the specific location of a series of unfortunate events. First, we need to establish some ground rules. Anything from the 13-book main series is fair game, but I'm not going to examine Lemony Snicket, the unauthorized autobiography, because it's unauthorized. I'm also not going to look at the 2004 Nickelodeon film, because it came out even before all of the books had been written. Is it canon? I don't know. I also haven't seen it, so we're gonna cut it. I will be looking through the books for textual evidence, but I will also take a few lines from the recent Netflix TV show, which I have seen. So without further ado, let's get started. This is a lot harder to do than they make it look. Right off the bat, we can eliminate a few continents using the ersatz elevator, because in it, Jerome is having a conversation with the Baudelaire children, and he mentions a few different continents as being foreign. A xenophobe is somebody who is afraid of people just because they come from a different country, which is a silly reason for fear. I would have thought that you three would be far too sensible to be xenophobes. After all, Violet, Galileo came from a country in Europe, and he invented the telescope. Would you be afraid of him? No, Violet said. I'd be honored to meet him, but... And Klaus, Jerome continued. Surely you've heard of the writer Junichiro Tanizaki, who came from a country in Asia. Would you be afraid of him? Of course not, Klaus said, but... And Sunny, Jerome continued. The sharp-toothed mountain lion can be found in a number of countries in North America. Would you be afraid if you met a mountain lion? Neetish, Sunny said, which meant something like, of course I would. Mountain lions are wild animals. But Jerome continued talking as if he hadn't heard a word she said. In the next book, The Vile Village, Mr. Poe eliminates Africa from the running as well. Let's look at that scene. I know it probably sounds mysterious to you, Mr. Poe continued, but the aphorism is actually very wise. It takes a village to raise a child, means that the responsibility for taking care of youngsters belongs to everyone in the community. I think I read something about this aphorism in a book about the Mbutu pygmies, Klaus said. Are you sending us to live in Africa? Don't be silly, Mr. Poe said, as if the millions of people who lived in Africa were all ridiculous. Based on this conversation, it seems that we can eliminate the continent of Africa as well. In the second book of the series, The Reptile Room, the children's Uncle Monty is going to take them on a trip to Peru. In fact, they plan to take an ocean liner to the country of Peru in order to do their exploring, which means it's very unlikely that they're located in South America. Well, we don't have days, Violet said firmly. We don't even have hours. At 5 o'clock, the Prospero leaves Hazy Harbor, and Stefano is going to do everything he can to make sure we're on that ship. And if we end up alone in Peru with him... Next up, we can eliminate Antarctica because, of course, nobody lives there. The landscape is very much not consistent with what we see in the books. I would also argue that Australia doesn't fit the bill due to its landscape. The fact that most of it is outback, and we never see any form of outback in any of the books. So here's where it gets tricky. Dealing with the accents in the show is very odd. Only 2 of the characters canonically have accents in the TV show, Esme Squalor and Charles from The Lucky Smells Lumber Mill. Esme has a British accent, and Charles has a New Zealand accent. But where it gets interesting is that Lewis Hines, who plays Klaus, is a British actor, but in the show he plays either an American or a Canadian accent. So what's up with that? This might seem a little bit pedantic, but I promise it will come in useful later on. To me, the conversation from the ersatz elevator is really not conclusive to eliminating North America. After all, the way Jerome speaks about North America is different than the way he speaks about the other continents. Whenever he talks about Asia or Europe, he's speaking about the entire continent. However, when he talks about North America, he mentions a number of countries. And so that seems to me that it's not eliminating all of the countries in North America, just some of them. So let's take a look at North America. What have we got? I don't think the series takes place in Mexico for a number of reasons. First of all, there's a real lack of Spanish speaking, and the topography is all wrong. Mexico doesn't really have non-tropical forests, which we see a lot of throughout the series. It also doesn't have the right sort of lakes in order to be like Lake Lacrimose. It has smaller lakes, mainly rivers. So because of this, I don't think Mexico can be in the running. Canada fits the bill even better than New Zealand's topography, and we can see this specifically through the Winnipeg references. The series goes out of its way to reference Winnipeg a lot, and the fictitious Duchess of Winnipeg. So I really think that this city in Canada must be fairly close to where the story takes place. We'll see if this fits in later on. Now I want to take a step back from the books and look a little bit more at the TV show, specifically the accents that I mentioned. So why do Esme and Charles have accents, but none of the other characters do? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a character quirk, or what seems more likely is that they emigrated from those countries, the UK and New Zealand, to whatever country we're looking at in the story. That seems the most likely because we don't get any other characters with foreign accents. And specifically because of what I said about the British actor who plays Klaus using an American or Canadian accent, we can also see that most of the characters are played by American or Canadian actors, about 50-50. So maybe it takes place in the nebulous Americanada. Let's explore. To find a location which best fits the story, we need to look at a map. And in the beginning of each one of the books, there is a map of the area that was created by Brett Hellquist, the series illustrator. So there's actually a correction that I need to make. The map that was created by Brett Hellquist is not actually in the beginning of each book. It's actually in the unauthorized autobiography. So sorry for telling you wrong, but I'm not really using that map anyway, so let's just get back into it. But it doesn't have all of the places that we need in order to figure out the overall geography of the area. A better map for the area that we see, that includes all of the locations, is one created by a fan forum user who goes by the name the Dr. Orwell. This person created a map that fits with the Brett Hellquist map while also expanding on the actual area. And I think this fits really well for our needs because if you look at the way the locations are spoken of throughout the series, the Dr. Orwell created their map in a similar way. It seems to be pretty reliable as far as where things are located in relation to one another. So let's look at that. The best geographical reference point, in my opinion, is Lake Lacrimose, which we see in Book 3, The Wide Window. In The Wide Window, Hurricane Herman devastates the area surrounding Lake Lacrimose, which means that it's a pretty big lake. The largest lakes in America are the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, Lake Superior, and Lake Michigan. Had to look this up. So, is it possible for a Great Lake to have a hurricane? Actually, yes. In 1913, a huge blizzard hurricane swept through the entire Great Lakes area. It killed hundreds of people and sunk dozens of ships. It lasted for several days, and it took out a great portion of the Great Lakes area. Later on, for a more recent example, September 11th through 15th, a huge tropical storm formed over Lake Huron. It sustained itself over the 5 days, and it caused massive destruction. Based on this evidence, I think Lake Huron is a good stand-in for Lake Lachrymose. So, let's look at the surrounding area. The landforms that follow the two maps of the land of a series of unfortunate events most are the pieces of Michigan State and Ontario that sit at the convergence of Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, and Lake Huron. The theory continues to hold up when you look at the topography of the region. According to the maps, the finite forest, location of Lucky Smell's lumber mill, should be in the bottom right corner. On a real map, this is the location of the main body of Michigan. Nearly exactly where the finite forest should be, Michigan has its Gaylord State Forest of red and white pine, which is managed for second growth logging as well as recreation. Another important feature of the landscape in the series is the Mortmain Mountains, especially Mount Fraught, the tallest. It is in this vicinity that the VFD headquarters were built, and most of the story of the Slippery Slope takes place. Fortunately, to the north, in Ontario, right where the Mortmain Mountains should be, the Ishpetina Ridge sits over 2,000 feet above sea level. And most importantly of all, the Ellis Fire Tower, a lonely sentry and reminder of days of old, sits on the tallest of the mountains in the range and looks out across the vast expanse of Canadian Shield wilderness. To me, this fire tower clearly indicates VFD headquarters, with the Canadian Shield wilderness representing the hinterlands. The city, where the Baudelaires once lived with their parents and revisited when they stayed with Count Olaf and the Squallers, sits in nearly the exact mirror location of Marquette, Michigan. If you compare older pictures of Marquette, particularly ones from the Victorian era, you can see that most of the buildings match the Snicket descriptions. It's very much a snickety location. You can look at the layout, you can look at the photographs from the unauthorized autobiography. I know I said I wasn't going to do that, but pictures are pictures, right? So if you look at Marquette and compare it to the pictures, it looks almost exactly the same. Like, I wonder if they took the pictures there. And if that weren't enough, Winnipeg is only about 640 miles away, a distance you can drive in 11 and a half hours. Does this not sound exactly like the locations we see in this series? This is it. I've cracked the code. After all these years, we finally know the location of the Snicket stories. And if these locations are real, maybe the story is real as well. Perhaps these books are the key to unlocking the history of Lemony Snicket. But that's not all. I can prove scientifically that VFD is real. And all I need to do is travel to Michigan, take a trolley ride through Marquette, work my way through the Canadian Shield wilderness, all while being pursued, tracked, hunted by Count Olaf and his minions. It will be dangerous, harrowing, a tale of misery and woe, marred by unfortunate events. But I who have uncovered the secrets of this story, will conquer the odds and find out the hidden secrets. Oh. I am the only one who understands this book series. I think we're good for today.